Well, here we are, somewhat reluctantly, another new edition of Celtics Beat. After obviously, just to say it has been tough to watch lately. When you have Mike Gorman calling out the team, who he will tell you, I mean, top of the homer list. When you have Mike Gorman, team play-by-play man, calling out the club, you know there's a problem. We're going to get to all of it. A lot to cover in the next little while here. I'm Adam Kaufman. Of course, you know Evan Valenti and Gary Washburn, long of the Boston Globe and a good friend of this program. Gary, how are you?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Bad, Gary. It's going bad. It's bad. This sucks. This is awful. It's not fun to watch. I don't think I've ever said this, and Evan has listened to every episode of this show that I have ever hosted. I don't think I have ever in my life said this. I hate this team. I do. Not the Boston Celtics. This team. This team is borderline unwatchable right now. It is awful. Sub 500, as we know. 15 and 17, but you look back, obviously, and we're not going to spend forever on specifically what happened last night in, another loss to the Hawks, a mediocre club, and it's just added to one of many at this point, losses in games that not only, should be won, but they're not even competitive in, obviously. It just to allow 41st quarter points, to let Danilo Gallinari absolutely go off against you. This club, no heart, no emotion, no grit, no snarl, no effort, no competitiveness. And I don't get it. At a certain point, everybody wants to blame Brad, and we'll get there as well, but I don't get it. The lack of self-pride out there on the court.
Okay, you look for a comment on that.
I'm looking for an answer, but I can't imagine
Yeah, I
you got
don't.
one,
I
because
mean, I
nobody
wish
does.
I really wish I knew what to say. Every time you think it's worse, it was supposed to be the low point at Washington after the loss to Detroit. Then they lost at Washington, where they really didn't compete, in my opinion. And then they kind of, they were able to beat Denver, who was short 5 rotation players. People, yeah, that's a good win, but like half their reserves were out in that game. And then you lose to Atlanta, where you let Trey go for 40. And then you also let Capella look like, Moses Malone in there and go for, I think he was like 24 and 15. Then you come back and beat him. So you think everything is okay. And then whatever happened in New Orleans happened. And then Dallas and then this. So, I mean, it's right now, I mean, they're just a confused bunch. I think that they have looked to management for maybe some support in terms of additional players, and that hasn't happened. I think guys are getting frustrated seeing the same guys on the floor not trusting each other. Um, I think they've tuned out Brad, and I don't think that I'm not. I'll just say is like I'm not calling for his head. I'm not saying like they can easily tune him back in, but for right now, last night they tuned him out. I mean, Danilo Gallinari is 32 years old and can't move anymore. Like he's a shooter. You can't let him get 10 threes. Klay Thompson, a few years ago against the Kings, and some of these guys would go nuts because they move off screens and they're athletic enough to get open. That's one thing. Gallinari it's simply defensive mistakes, like doubling someone else, leaving him open, like or him like it's to the point of like it was embarrassing. And the Hawks were literally Trey and Gallinari were literally trying to see who could hit the farthest three. And this was like the second quarter. I mean, teams, as I asked Brad last night, like, teams don't care about your issues. They will try to embarrass you. Atlanta's looking to have fun. They came off a tough loss at Cleveland where they probably should have won the game. So they're having fun. And they're going to have fun at your expense unless you have a pride enough to stop them. This team has lacked pride. It's lacked fortitude, toughness, all of the intangibles that make good quality clubs. I don't know how you get that back. Oh, it's Marcus Smart. He's going to bring, like, stop that. Like, they should be better than that without Marcus. Like, the whole, like, Marcus is just going to be the key to, like, I'm tired of the injury excuse. Every team has injuries. Brooklyn has played the last 6 games without Durant, and they keep winning. Now, they got other talent, but they also have guys like Joe Harris, Bruce Brown, guys who can make shots, too. I think that's one of the problems of this organization. It's Danny's fault. Danny has, one, not admitted when they're wrong. I think it's a whole structural institutional issue with the Celtics. The Celtics have a Patriots problem. We think we know more than everyone else around the league. We are smarter than the other 29 teams. And they have held that philosophy for years. And it is burning them. Their talent evaluation is not good. They haven't made the right moves. They've had some terrible drafts. You want to know who to blame? Blame the 16 draft after Jaylen when they drafted Guerschon and Ante Zizic. Blame that draft. They passed on Pascal Siakam twice. Who's the talent evaluator there? Who in the world looked at Guerschon and said, that's an NBA player? Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's terrible mistakes. We can go to the James Young, Jawan Johnson. Like, Danny's had bad drafts. And I'm talking about and I'm not saying it's easy to take the top three because Phoenix took Josh Jackson and whiffed. There's been whiffs in the top five. What? And to land Jaylen, when people in Boston had never heard of him, was a good, like, as a risky pick, but a good pick, obviously. Because in this area, people don't watch Pac-12. People had never heard of Jaylen Brown. And the same with Tatum. Tatum's skinny. He didn't do, he's okay at Duke. Like, those are two great picks. You got to give Danny his awards and flowers for that. But the reason this team isn't good is because Danny will not refuse to admit that he's wrong on drafts. He will not make any roster moves. And Jaylen and Jayson are looking back like, man, can we get some help? If not, we're going to do this on our own. There's so many times you can pass a Tice and he misses a jumper or misses a three. But so many times you can give the ball to guys who don't come through, where you're eventually going to take it on your own. And you can call that selfish, or you can just call it, hey, I trust myself over anybody. So the problem is that Jaylen and Jayson are looking, and Jaylen is biting his tongue during these media sessions, biting his tongue with his unhappiness. Okay. They all are trying to do, okay, I'm just going to put it on myself and try to be better. Like, they need better teammates. They need a better bench. They need scorers. They need shooters. The other night, Jalen Brunson, a former second-round pick. I'm not saying, okay, a lot of teams passed on him because he was too small. First of all, Villanova guys make good pros. I think we know that, right? The Celtics passed on Saddiq Bey for Aaron Nesmith. I think they're going to regret that. Maybe they won't. But I think Saddiq Bey has more threes against the Celtics than Aaron Nesmith has this season, right? It's 14 to something. I don't know how many Nesmith have. It's probably close. Okay, and I'm not burning Nesmith. Nesmith might be a good pro. But Jalen Brunson comes off the bench and scores 16 in the fourth quarter. The Celtics don't have anyone capable of that on their bench. They don't have the support. It's Jaylen and Jayson every night, and they're trying too hard, and they're going hero ball, individual stuff. And so it's a lot. This team has a lot of problems. Can they get out of it? Yeah. I mean, but look at their last four games, guys. Indiana, Washington, the Clippers, and Toronto before the break. You name a win. Maybe Washington at home.
Hope so.
Tomorrow is going to be a war with the Pacers. There's not going to be. You think Sabonis is going to be okay? Celtics, go ahead, win. We know you've been struggling. Indiana's going to try to cut their throats. So is Washington. And then the Clippers come in with Kawhi coming off, and they beat them 2 weeks ago. And then the Raptors. This team could lose four more in a row. I think they'll win one or two, but yeah, their lives here are on the line. They are literally playing themselves into the play-in tournament, if that.
There's a lot there, obviously, and a million different things that we could ask you about. We will in the time that we've got, but I think you have to start with Danny Ainge, and you spent most of that time on Danny Ainge. The fact that I'm not calling for his job either. I'm not calling for Brad's job. I'm not calling for anybody's job specifically, but when it comes to Danny, I think we're at a point, and this is not some sort of like living in the moment, the team's 15 and 17. I think there's, even in recent years where this team has, in fairness, gone to the conference final 3 out of the last 4 years, there has been an inability to get over the hump. You know what I mean? Like, even if they had gone to the finals last year, even if they had beaten Miami, we were talking about this last week, that's still not a club that was positioned to beat the Lakers, barring LeBron getting hurt or something like that. There's still that gap in terms of overall talent level and the way that this roster is constructed. It's only obviously, gotten worse. And people can point, and fairly, at Tatum, Brown, Walker, Smart playing a combined 28 minutes so far through 32 games this year. Injuries, things like that, they come into play. Of course they do. For every single team, can you win in spite of it, like you talked about? And at a certain point, and I think we're there, and maybe we're past there, at a certain point for Danny Ainge, when you match up, franchise expectation, the market that we're in, obviously one title in 35 years, haven't won one since 08. I'm not discounting the KG and Allen trades and rebuilding this team multiple times over, in 07. And since then, obviously, after Brad got here and a lot of great draft picks like you outlined, especially there at the top with Tatum and Brown, and, even some good finds along the way in the late teens and 20s. Nevertheless, Danny doesn't care about feeling the ire of fans. He doesn't pay attention to that stuff. And he will, when he's doing his interviews, he will be the first to, not run from criticism. He'll take it. He might defend it, but he'll take it. He'll listen to it. He'll give a good interview. But when you have such unwavering support that you do from ownership, and Wick Grossbeck was on the radio yesterday, like Danny and Brad, like, these are our guys. They're not going anywhere. Brad was recently extended. When you have a job for life, which is more or less what it feels like for both of these guys, despite the fact that Danny says he does he truly feel whatever urgency that needs to be felt to take this team to another place? Or does he know, I can run this thing the way I want to run it on the timeline that I want to run it because I am safe, I'm not going anywhere? Or, kind of the part two of that is, I know you've brought up, do they need some other voices in there around Danny Ainge that just aren't there? What is missing?
I mean, the problem is you have the same hierarchy of Danny, his son Austin, and Mike Zarren, and a couple of other guys just making the same decisions. You need a fresh voice. You need a better talent evaluator. There's just a lot that this team needs. Danny needs to open up his palette a little bit and start figuring out, okay, do I need an ex-player in management? What do I need to make this organization better? You've got to do a self-assessment. You can't continue to think the same way is going to work because it's failing. Okay, it's not working. Your talent evaluation is not working. You're missing on guys. Adam, they gave away the 30th pick. Have you seen Desmond Bain's numbers?
It's good. He can play.
10 points a game, 47% from the three-point line for the 30th pick. Or they could have taken the other kid from Michigan State, the guy who was there like 20 years. He was
Xavier Tillman.
Yes, they could have taken him, who literally, I think, played with the Flintstones in 2000 and just got out. I mean, he was there for a while. Okay, that's a grown man. Like, you want a quality big. Like, there's so many things to me that is just being ignored. And then you just give away a first rounder for 2 second rounders, which you're probably not going to use. Oh, they can dabble those in future trades. Okay. Like, I mean, when's the last time? Oh, you throw in another second round pick and we're going to give you our superstar. Like, it's a joke.
Kyrie Irving.
You don't want to admit, or you don't want to cut one of the guys on your roster to accommodate another first round pick who might help you. If you want to go young, then go young. Use these first round picks, make accurate talent assessments, bring them in and develop them. Don't give away a first rounder, like, just for two, because you don't want any more young guys. I mean, yeah, do they need another young guy? Then maybe you get rid of one of the young guys on your roster. Hey, all these are great guys. Carson Edwards, I like Tremont Waters. Do something. You look at Brooklyn signs guys and dumps them a week later. Like, Brooklyn is making moves. What was the song? Making money moves. Same with the Lakers. Lakers released Quinn Cook.
Yep.
Quinn Cook help them? Yes. But they want to open up a roster spot for somebody, then that's the goal. Hey, Quinn, we know you want a title with us. Hey, good, hey, you'll be invited to the reunions, but dude, you got to go right now. It's a grown man business, grown woman business. And Danny doesn't want to make these tough decisions. You got to sometimes dunk guys. You got to sometimes you have to look at your rock. Well, what's he saying? Well, we don't have Danny, you built this roster. It's your fault. And if you have issues with talent evaluation, if you're not getting the most out of your drafts, then bring someone in, one of these hot shots, Mike Schmidt's guys, to help you. Because right now you're not getting the most out of your drafts. Like
too many of the same players.
You took Romeo Langford. You could have taken Brandon Clark. Who knows what to make of Romeo? When is Romeo going to really help this team? Next year at best? Because he's going to come back. Do you think Brad's going to play him the minute he's healthy? He might come off the bench in the playoffs and give you a defensive possession or two. Like Romeo Langford, and I don't great kid. He's 2 years behind. And physically, he wasn't ready for the league, as we can see. Some of these one and dones are physically ready. Like LaMelo Ball was ready. Some of these guys are ready. Some of them physically aren't ready. Romeo probably should have gone back to Indiana, hit the weight room, got a little stronger because he's injury prone. And I think that's to do with probably his body isn't mature enough. But what do you expect from him? But meanwhile, you look at the other players in that draft who are taken after Romeo, they're helping their team. You could have Brandon Clark on your roster. I'm not saying Brandon Clark's a great player, but you're whiffing on these mid-first rounders. You whiffed on James Young. You whiffed on Zizic and Guerschon. Romeo, the jury's still out. But
they have no depth. They have no depth.
Yes, and that's Danny's fault. And Danny's afraid to admit he's made mistakes and release these guys reluctantly. You release Guerschon after guaranteeing his contract a couple years. Like they basically waited to the last minute to dump Guerschon. And here's a sign here, guys. You threw Zizic into the Kyrie trade.
Yeah.
Zizic's out the league. Not one NBA team gave Guerschon a sniff. Like that's the sign that some of these guys ain't good. When no other team, James Young bounced around, G League got some two ways, whatever, like never stuck either. So that's the failure of your talent evaluation. So does Danny need to assess himself, his staff? Hey, Danny, stop surrounding yourself with all your cronies. Yeah, we did it in 2008. It's 13 years ago. The Sox have won 2 titles since then. The Patriots since 2008, 3 Super Bowls?
Too many to count.
Huh? Yeah, 3 Super Bowls. Even the Bruins have won one and been to another cup. And so you're looking at, like, Danny should be, the pressure should be, I'm talking about, like, I'm not calling for his job, but Danny definitely needs to do some self-assessment, Adam and Evan. And I don't know whether, like, you're like your point, like, where he's like, man, I ain't getting fired, so I will do this on my time. I'm not going to admit I'm wrong. I'm not going to I'm just going to keep on doing it. I'm just going to take my time with this player exception. Hey, if the right deal comes, like, if that's the method, then if I'm a Celtic fan, I am demoralized from that. If that's his approach.
He was speaking today about that, how they might kick the can down the road for the offseason because there might be better deals available then. I get that point, but there has to be a sense of urgency. Back to your point, you have 2 guys in Jaylen and Jayson who have shown you that they are ready for the next step, right? We've been watching this team for years, and it's been all fun to watch these 2 guys grow their games and accomplish a lot and not a lot of time, right? They go to the Eastern Conference Finals that first year together, and they've been back twice since, right? But at some time, like, it's annoying getting to that spot and not be able to get past that. And these 2 guys are having all-star seasons. You can make the argument they're having all NBA seasons. Both of them, they've made significant improvements across their games, and they're just and I'm with you on this. They're looking around saying, they got the same guy. All right, I know they wear different numbers, but Grant Williams and Shemi Ojale and Aaron Nesmith and all those guys do a lot of the same stuff. Okay, they stand in the corner and they hit threes. Like Shemi Ojale, if he puts the ball on the floor, you get nervous. Same with Grant. Same with Nesmith. And they just have a bunch of the same guy. And if all you're going to do is stand in the corner and hit threes, like having one of those, having PJ Tucker on the floor is nice when you have James Harden and Eric Gordon and other guys around him. You know, this team has identified the role player they want. They just have too many of them. And they don't have another guy like Kemba. If Kemba were to come down to earth and regain the Kemba form we saw her last year, then it solves some problems. But you can't bank on that because what you've seen so far. So you have Gorman yesterday, Gary, he says, Jaylen and Jayson, they have to do their job at winning games. And I'm like you saying, what else do you want them to do other than what they're doing? So you hear Gorman say that.
When they got involved, like, oh, well, Shimmy should be doing more if you got more of an opportunity. Like, there's not one teammate, if you take away Kemba, that I feel like, hey, man, like, that dude could do a lot more if he got the chance. Like, I don't see that. Like, I don't know what Gorman, I think that there is a level of, like, individuality with Jaylen and Jayson, because one, they're the best two players of the team. Two, stars have that type of mentality. But three, if you don't trust your teammates and you could repeatedly go to those guys and they don't come through, I mean, how many open threes? And I know Tice, I'm kind of hard on Tice. Like, Tice against the Pelicans, he played 39 minutes, and that was like 37 too many. Like, he fumbled passes, he got dunked. Like, it was just like, why have him out there? There's some games that Tice is just useless. He gets to that
point. I'm sorry to cut you off. To that point, like, and this isn't even an anti-Daniel Tice thing. I think there are plenty of games that he's good, but if we're going to attack, management, coaches, staff in terms of all right, you got all these young kids, how about develop some of them beyond, like they're working to develop, obviously, they're superstars in Brown and Tatum. And obviously, Peyton Pritchard is ahead of the curve, looking like a draft steal. Some of these other guys are sort of either behind or floundering in mediocrity. There have been enough signs for just to stay with the bigs. Robert Williams should be playing 25 minutes a game. I'm not saying he's got to start. I'd like him to get there, but he should be playing 25 minutes a game. And for some reason, even with this double big setup, we're not seeing it. And it just goes back to what you're talking about with Tice. Why are we not seeing it? If they're this is not a contending team. Hopes to be, maybe it gets on track. Right now, it's not a contending team. Why aren't you at least embracing some element of let's develop the guys who could help us get there?
Well, I do think you're trying to win. And I don't know if they want to play Robert too much. But because there's times he makes mistakes, but yeah, I mean,
he's playing 15 minutes a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole we want to save him for the playoffs and keep him fresh because he's injury prone. I mean, he's 22 years old, 23 years old. I don't know about that. I mean, unless the doctor said, hey, like, it's a wear and tear thing, like with the hip and things like that. Unless they might have medical information we're not privy to.
If that's the case, I hope they don't plan on re-signing him down the road. If he can only play 15 minutes a game in the regular season in his young 20s.
Minutes limitations for 23-year-old players. That's very interesting. I don't think Tristan's been bad at all. Like, people have been ripping the Tristan signing. He's brought exactly what you expected. Offensive rebound. I think he's been better offensively than he has been in the last couple of years. I think he's gotten them extra possessions. And I think he's trying to take some more of the offensive role on, knowing that Jaylen and Jayson need help. I think he's been fine. Like, he's not one I'm like pointing to as like, Dan, that's a terrible signing, Danny. People are pointing out, well, they shouldn't have signed to the full mid-level. He's coming off a year, he made $18 million. Like, was he going to take 5? That's an interesting topic. Could you have really negotiated down with Tristan? I don't think that was a bad deal. I think Tice, it just depends on if he's going to help you in a particular game or not. I just think Jaylen and Jayson are tired of passing him the ball, shimmy the ball, other guys the ball, and they're not hitting shots. Or it's a big pivotal moment where they could really turn the tide, and they're not doing it. And if you, let's say, you look at some of these other teams, the guys come off the bench, or the lesser players, a guy like Josh Hart, in the Pelicans game, or Jalen Brunson. You look at guys who can just get you that 18, 19 points every now and then and knows how to do their job. And they also missing veterans. I look at a guy like a Garrett Temple or whatever. I'm just saying, like him. He's a professional player. He stays in the league because he's a pro, right? If you look at, he doesn't stand out. Most average NBA fans don't even know who the guy was. but he keeps signing contracts because he can shoot the three, he can defend, and he knows what to do in his 18 minutes. This team doesn't have that. I blame Danny too for a situation like last year. Markieff Morris was just hanging in Detroit, waiting for something to happen, and the Pistons were terrible. Why wouldn't you try to go trade 2 second-rounders to get Markieff Morris? Mm-hmm. Markieff Morris was bought out. The Lakers, then of course he's not going to go to Boston in a buyout situation if the Lakers are after him. And he re-signed in LA for the minimum because he wanted to like. Why? What was wrong? You needed bigs last year. Why wouldn't you give up some of these sacred picks? I'm talking about a first rounder for a guy like Markieff Morris. Instead, you pass on him. He gets bought out. He goes to the Lakers. You could have called. Detroit was looking to get rid of him. Like, to me, what's going on here? He's a big, mean, intimidating dude. His brother had fun, liked Boston. You couldn't bring him in as kind of an enforcer guy because Tice ain't no enforcer. Al wasn't an enforcer a couple years ago. Like, you needed someone like this. That's the stuff I don't understand. Their philosophy against why don't we sign this? You don't want to take any chances. You're going to lose all the time. You're going to, sometimes you're going to fail. Like the Lakers signed J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters. It didn't work out. You don't see it happens. You bring guys in. Sometimes you can't always go undefeated. I mean, remember, a few years when they brought in Michael Finley 10 years ago and Troy Murphy,
Stephon
David
Marbury.
Lee, they tried, right? And some of those were just the guys weren't that good anymore. Okay, you move on from them. But now it's like this, they don't want to take any chance. Well, we don't want to mess with our roster. We don't want to release Javonte or Carson to do this. We don't have any roster space. One, you're holding your roster, your 2-2-8s for Taco. How long can you do that? Okay, is Taco going to help you? Is he going to be like a Boban was the other night where he got you? I think Boban got 10 and 6 or something like that. He was actually effective. Is that your goal? And you're going to
sign me up for Boban.
Yeah,
Yeah, but play him though. If you play him against Boban, if he's going to score 10 and 6, put the guy out there.
Yeah, I don't understand why you wouldn't use him against Boban if Boban is literally reaching over Daniel Tice and taking the ball from him and just laying it in. Like, why you wouldn't go with Taco? But they're holding a spot for Taco. And I sort of understood that very much so. One, because he's a box office attraction. I think it's a business deal. But two, okay, you want to develop the 7-5 guy. And then you got Tremont Waters. Tremont was supposed to be this like young up-and-coming point guard. Then here comes Peyton Pritchard. So what do you need Tremont for? Are you developing Tremont to be a backup? Are you developing him to be a backup? Like, what is it that you're doing with Tremont? You're just using roster space. Carson, Javonte, and I think Javonte can help them. So I'm not sure about Javonte, but then in addition to Grant Williams and Romeo Langford, like a lot of guys, like you said, Evan, to do the same thing, or they're so inexperienced, you don't know if they can help you on a particular night. That's the problem.
So something I was thinking about, Gary, just yesterday, I had a chat with a guy I'm sure you know also has covered the NBA for quite a while, and that's Karn Phillips, who was with Deadspin now. I was chatting with him the other day, and we were just kind of going back and forth about the NBA in general and talked about the Celtics a little bit. And he's like, and oh, by the way there, Adam, is there a team in NBA history that feeds off of one singular championship more than the 08 Celtics? Which is
no,
there isn't. There isn't. There just isn't. And that's certainly the national view, and a lot of it is because so many of these guys, Perk most recently, are in the media. Obviously, Pierce and KG's been in the media plenty. He's got the book out now, which by the way looks awesome. I want to read it. But it's true. I don't bring that up to like dump on 08. I mean, that's one of my great memories as a sports fan. I love that team. But there is obviously an element of living in the past with this organization that has just been the case, and to the point where it's almost kind of problematic, I think. And I heard, I don't know if you listened to Wick Grossbeck on the Sports Hub yesterday, and he didn't say a whole lot that was earth-shattering, and credit him for doing the appearance in the midst of struggles in the first place. But one misstep that I think he did make, or at least one bad look, is saying that look, we thought that Kyrie Irving was going to be here forever, and he decided to go somewhere else, and we had to kind of pivot and respond there. And it just to even harken back to Kyrie leaving. I mean, one, like, how does that make me feel if I'm Kemba Walker? Two, how does it kind of make me feel if I'm the other superstars on your team? And it just feels a little bit unnecessary to even single out a situation that went wrong, ultimately, revisionist history, but ultimately a bad gamble, obviously, and a guy that so passionately didn't want to be here and didn't buy in, and everything that we've come to learn after the fact. And now he goes somewhere else and he's finding success because now he actually cares and he's with guys that he wants to be with. It's just to even bring it up in the first place and to live in that mind space, I think it's concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I think that there's a level of living off '08 is definitely something that, I mean, look at a guy like Scalabrine, who is considered a god here over the '08 season, although he wasn't on the playoff roster, or the finals roster,
Yeah.
But yet he's a god here. He's a champion. They do get a lot of mileage off of that. And that's 13 years. That's a long time. And it just seems like yesterday. It definitely seems like maybe 7, 8 years ago. It doesn't seem like 13. But man, if you watch NBA games in '08, you remember, you realize who wouldn't be in the league then? No Steph, no Kawhi, no Harden, no Durant as a rookie, skinny rookie with Seattle. Like, if you go back to '08 and watch the '08 games, you just, oh my God, that guy was in the league then. Like, it's a time warp, really. Because if you go back, I mean, as much, you just think of the guys that are were in the league then, that were on their way out, and guys now that were literally still in college, some probably in high school. I mean, Jayson Tatum was 10 years old in the '08 season. He had turned 10. So that shows you that. So I do think they get a lot of mileage out of that. I do think they've tried to turn the page. I mean, Doc's obviously since left. They were able to,
by his choosing, by the way.
Huh?
By his choosing.
Yes, he didn't want to rebuild. I mean, it's definitely a something that they need to move on from. And I think they've tried. It just hasn't worked. And people keep bringing up '08, and you have Pierce on TV '08, Perk '08. You have, and then every time someone talks to Ray or something like, hey, let's talk about the '08 season, guys. Let's talk about the good old days. And so it constantly gets reminded. And I don't think that's necessarily
Alan Posey, like, these guys are on the radio or podcasts all the time. Same deal.
Yeah, I don't think it's like necessarily the current Celtics like management's fault, but there is definitely like a holding on to the good old days, and this is not the good old days anymore. Those are gone, and I'm not saying that you can't reminisce, but you've got to push back. I think it's in a sense from those days, and they've tried to create a new team. They tried to create a new title contender. And they went to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 times, and they were in a Game 7, and they had a chance to beat LeBron in Cleveland and couldn't pull it off, and put 7 for 36 from the 3-point line or wherever they were that Game 7 at the Garden. But to me, they're trying to turn the page, but people keep harking back to that '08 season. Leon Poe, PJ Brown, it's like Sam Cassell. Like, you get it. You get it. And it was fun. I'm sure I wasn't here as a year before I got here, or 2 years before I got here. So I'm sure it looked enjoyable, and it was overdue. 22 years. The Celtics have really been at the bottom of the depths of the NBA for a long time. But now it's time to do something different. The Lakers have since won a title. I mean, they were kind of living off the 09-10 title for a while, and they went and got LeBron James, right? And then Anthony Davis. So they flipped the script. I mean, it's just time for the Celtics to try to do whatever. I'm concerned, if I'm a Celtic fan, by Danny's kind of, we can wait till the offseason to use that trade. Like, wow, okay, what are you telling your current players? What are you telling Jaylen and Jayson? Because I swear, I guarantee you, they're looking over their shoulder waiting for some more help. They don't want to do it all. They don't want to be selfish guys. I don't think they're selfish guys. But like we've talked about, like you don't trust your teammates if your teammates aren't coming through for you. Like who are you supposed to pass the ball to? Like I'd like to know. Like Gorman, I get what he was saying, but it's like Mike, who do you think Jayson should get involved that he hasn't gotten involved? Shimmy, you know, and I'm not like I like Shimmy, but Shimmy's a guy. He's a second round pick. He's a guy who I think you've maximized. You can, you know, he can get better, but I think you've gotten a lot out of Shimmy, a second round pick. Usually second round picks don't even last. But and to depend on him at this point to be anything more than he is asking a lot. A 3-and-D guy who can occasionally get hot from the three, but hasn't been as reliable as you'd like him to be from that corner spot, because that's where you want him to shoot. When he starts pulling up, when he starts shooting from the elbows, no. Shimmy, get to the corner. The same with Grant Williams. Grant is, I think, maximizing. He was an undersized 5 at Tennessee. You know, he scored because he was big and bulky, but that doesn't work in the league when you're 6'6", trying to score over taller guys. So he's become kind of a lumbering, foul-prone guy who can but is that his max? Like, what's the ceiling for Grant Williams? And that's the thing, we don't know. But I don't think it's all that much higher than it is now. Romeo Langford, as I said before, we don't know what he'll do, and it could take 2 to 3 years before he is a really a complementary player to Jayson and Jaylen. It could be a year or two because he's missed almost 2 years. I mean, it's just a lot. Like there's a lot of to me just stuff that Danny has to address. Look in the mirror, look at his staff, and bring in someone, if it's a former player, a good talent evaluator, someone who says, nah, Danny, I don't like this guy. I do like this guy. Even though he's not he's a Celtic, and I'm tired of we would have taken Tyler Hero. We were this close to take, but he was taking then do it, then trade up.
Yeah.
Or do something you know what I'm saying? Like the Tyler Hero thing kind of annoys me. The whole we were almost there with Tyler Hero. We really liked him. Okay, if you like him enough, then move up. If you think that he's going to make that much of a difference, take some chances here. And we never envisioned Danny taking all the picks that they used. All these picks that they got, they used them, almost all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, these are incentives for big deals that you can throw in. You can send these 2 first-rounders to New Orleans for Anthony Davis, or you can that ain't worked. That ain't happened. You haven't. I mean, other teams have done it. The Lakers traded 3 rotation players: Lonzo, Brandon Ingram, and Josh Hart to New Orleans, and I think to New Orleans, and then some draft picks. It's happened with other teams, but the Celtics, no. And is that ever going to happen? Or is a guy who's on the last year of his deal going to re-up in Boston without being here for a year and experiencing what Boston's like? This is not LA. AD, I'm sure, was like, yeah, I'll take my chances on LA. Boston, not so much. So it's a time for reassessment for management, for the coaching staff. What is Evan Turner doing? Is he having any type of impact on his coaching staff? We don't know. We don't know. We don't get to see. We don't get to go to practice, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. But it's a lot of issues with this team.
Yeah, it's one of the weirdest seasons, and it's been obviously a roller coaster ride for Boston. And there's certain slices of the blame pie to go around. I'm with you, Danny. I think deserves most of it. I think there are times where you can definitely blame Brad for some stuff, But he's not out there shooting the basketball. He can only do so much, I always come back to this is more of a roster issue than anything else. And as you look around, and my issue is, because of those play-in spots, you have more people now that are incentivized to try and make the playoffs. Like you have the Sacramento Kings, who have Harrison Barnes, and I think Harrison Barnes is everybody's favorite person to fantasize trading for now. That would be a real help for this team because you can put the ball on the floor and get to the basket and do more things than just stand in the corner. So you look at the way this team could maybe improve. There are ways, but then there are, is Sacramento going to try and make the playoffs? Is Chicago, with maybe a Thad Young, but they're hanging around, and Zach LaVine's an all-star. We want to show Zach.
Chicago's got a better record than the Celtics.
Right. So
what? Who's ready to be a seller? That's the thing.
Right. My question.
Chicago and New York and Charlotte are all above. Like this has really been terrible if you really think about it. Like the Bulls were like, the Bulls. Like the Celtics went to Chicago and just kind of won, pulling away. Now the Bulls have won 5 straight. The Bulls are playing good ball. Like you're right, Evan. Like I'm looking. Sacramento is 3 back from the 10th spot. Okay, it's going to be a war for that 10th spot. Oklahoma City, you think, they're sellers, right? They're 2.5 back from that 10th spot.
SG had 42 last night.
Yes,
42.
Houston is 3.5 back. The only team that you're like they ain't got a shot is Minnesota because Minnesota's 9 back from they're not getting to the 10th spot. Okay, if you look at the 10th spot now in the East, the Detroit's only 6 back, and they're terrible. Washington is 2.5 back. Like Orlando's 2 back. So all these let's get Terrence Ross and Nikola Vucevic and Aaron Gordon. Like Orlando management might be telling coaches no, go all out for this spot. We want that playoff money. We're losing money with no fans. We want to be in that play-in. We want a good share of the playoff money, or we want to be involved in that. You don't know what's going on. So your sellers are going to develop late into the game. And it's another month before the trade deadline, a month from today, that you just don't know. Like you said, Evan, those 2 extra playoff spots have affected because no one's really out of it. I mean, Detroit is 6 back. I'm not saying Detroit's going to come back and do it, but if Detroit put together like a 6-game winning streak, they'd be right in it. Remember, everybody was laughing at Washington, like Washington was, 5-17 or whatever. Now then Washington went out west and got hot. I mean, now Washington's like, hey, we're some good health, a consistent Westbrook, and from really getting. You don't think Washington wants to make the playoffs? Like they don't want to be. They're tired of being sellers. They've been kind of humiliation mode since they took the Celtics to the Eastern Conference semis a few years ago. So I mean, it's not going to be easy to get out of this.
I just don't. I don't know where is the trade coming. Everybody's asking for a trade. I just don't know. Like, and you make Detroit and Minnesota, right? Those are 2 teams that are definitely out of it. Who the hell do you want from Minnesota or Detroit? I mean, Malik Beasley can score.
That's just signed there,
right?
Oh, I want
Cat available.
Someone threw out Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like Detroit's just going to move him after signing him 3 months ago. Like to me, he's part of your future. Like Detroit's trying to build. Unless you give really Detroit's, it ain't going to be 1st-round picks. Like Detroit's going to want a difference-making player because they've done enough trades, they've done enough of the rebuild and all that. They want to take steps forward.
And how many of those at this point does Boston have to offer?
Yeah, and how many
untouchable. So beyond that,
like who's going to really be lured by a Boston 1st-round pick that at worst is going to be in the middle of the 1st round? You don't have a Sacramento pick to dangle, or back in the day, you don't have like a top 5 pick where you can get Cade Cunningham, or you can get the kid Jaylen Johnson, or the kid from Duke who just opted out. Like there is not that lure. It's the Celtics just have their own picks.
Yeah, which might be a lure enough because they're that bad.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, you want to make a 1st rounder, or to me, it's not going to be easy to get out of this. But that's what Ainge is paid for. Ainge is paid to make deals to improve this roster. and he has sat on his hands. He sat on his hands this offseason. They signed Jeff Teague and they signed Tristan Thompson. I'm not, Teague was decent last night. I don't, is Teague the problem? To me, I might as well sign Isaiah Thomas. Like, and if he fell on his face, then fine. You tried.
These Celtics fans would enjoy that. C's fans would rather watch Isaiah Thomas triple over his face than watch Jeff Teague play a single minute of a game.
Yeah,
just the reaction when it was announced Teague was starting last night.
Finger roll because he's afraid of the defense. He's afraid to get blocked, so he quick arms it and airballs it because he's so afraid of getting blocked at the rim. And I said, I think Jeff he was good in Atlanta, and the first half of last year, if you look at his numbers in Minnesota before he got traded back to Atlanta, he was good. 14 points a game, and he was a solid player. So I can understand, look at those numbers and saying, okay, he can bring that to us. So if I'm the Celtics, but it hasn't worked. But are you going to just hold on to him? Like, what are you going to do here? Like, Danny, I thought, sat on his hands. And we can all talk about the Gordon Hayward, Indiana thing. Did he sit on his hands? I mean, Indy's GM Kevin Pritchard admitted they were talking and said they were close, but, it didn't work out. So, the sitting on your hands thing ain't getting it done. Because this is the roster that you have. This is the roster you're rolling out on a nightly basis, and it ain't scaring nobody. Ain't nobody looking at Boston going, ooh, Lord. Besides Tatum and Brown. And, they're not, losing sleep at night preparing for Shimmy and Carson Edwards and Jeff Teague and guys. They're not. They're not. They're embarrassing. Last night was embarrassing. I mean,
we obviously know, most of the blame falls on Danny, who owns it. Next level is going to go to the players because they're the ones on the floor, attempting to execute, obviously, the game plans, hopefully not tuning out Brad Stevens, but obviously you brought that up. And that's, if in fact they are, that to me is a real concern because I don't think it's easy to just tune a guy back in. I think that's sort of the, beginning of the end where things are really problematic when that reaches, especially your star levels of guys tuning out the head coach. And Brad, let's remember, just a few months ago was extended. This guy's got like 6 more years or something, like whatever it is.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, not going anywhere.
But to me, the tune out part is the effort. It's not losing. It's the Washington game. That was like, they went through the motions. They let Beal get comfortable. It's like all of what you don't do with the Wizards. Let Beal get comfortable. Last night, come on, guys. Atlanta, Trae Young did not score until the 6:12 mark of the first quarter. He finished the first quarter with 17 points. He scored 17 points in a half a quarter. That's, for your math majors, 34 points if he had decided to be really engaged, because he was I'm going to distribute, whatever. So John Collins got baskets. Tony Snell hit a couple of threes. Like, he got his teammates involved. Then halfway through the quarter, he turned the light on. Like, that's effort. Letting Danilo hit 10 threes, that's effort. That's too, like, you think Brad is like, no, just leave Danilo alone. He'll shoot it. He'll shoot his way out of it. He'll miss. Like, do you think Brad's saying that? There's a disconnect there. And I'm not saying that, they're just blah, but it is sort of like Charlie Brown at this point. Like, last night was if you don't come back mad after the New Orleans game, which they really didn't, they didn't punch Dallas in the mouth. They played well enough to hang throughout the game. Dallas made more plays at the end. You could call that a good effort. Hey, great. If you want to call
let Dallas shoot 50% in the first half, what kind of defensive effort were you giving up?
Yeah, you let.
And then the 40 points in the first quarter to Atlanta. The effort. Yeah. It's annoying because you never. We talk about living off an 08 title team. You never had to question, the effort level of that team because they had Kevin Garnett who could hold
72 in the first half. Atlanta had 61 points with 5 minutes left in the second quarter, so they kind of lightened up on them.
Yeah, the question was, will they get 80? 70 knew what was happening. They get 80.
Totally. If they really turned the screws, they could have scored 80 in the first half. Like, that's pride. That's your heart being taken from you. You know, Trey throwing the ball off Grant's butt and scoring a layup.
Yeah.
You know, that's not Grant's fault. He had his back turned, but that's insulting. Like, that's the next time, Trey, you come to the rim, I'm gonna knock your ass out. Like, that's we should call Smack or Rick Mahorn and see what happens if he would have pulled that in 1988 or 1993 with Anthony Mason or somebody. Like, that's, to me, that's what I'm talking about. Where's the toughness? Where's the, like, no, Trey, you're not, you do that cute shit. We're gonna, okay, come into the lane. No, let him into the lane.
Grant's too nice. He's too polite for that.
Yeah, it's like too much nice. Hey, it's okay, Trey. You know, just keep playing hard. Like, I mean, it's just teams are insulting you. Danilo's pulling up from 36 feet. Would he do that if he respected the opponent? And there was one play in the third quarter when the Celtics were trying, because Atlanta then turned to Atlanta in the second half. They started missing shots. They started making turnovers. And it's like they're leaving it open for a run. So the Celtics had cut it to like 18 and so they need some stops. So Rondo does lets the ball roll all the way down the half court, and he's doing that. And I think it was like Teague or someone kind of pressured him. Then here comes a second defender at Rondo, 35 feet from the basket. Rondo passes it to Trey, who's open, and Trey hits a 35-footer. Like, why do you leave? Do you not read the scouting report? Like, why are you doubling Rondo? Why are you trapping Rondo leaving Trey open? The league's 21 is like, I was like, they're done. Like, if they had gotten a couple of stops, they could have made it 13. And then we're talking about the Hawks here. The Hawks might botch it, but you literally let Rondo looks at the trap, just throws it to Trae Young, and Trae Young, where he's standing, shoots it. Bam. 21-point lead. You're pretty much done. So, dumb basketball. Fouling in the bonus too damn much. Letting teams embarrass you with no repercussions. As I've said, in the 90s or even the 2000s, let somebody do that with Garnett on the floor. And do that hit, throw it off Grant's buttons, lay it in. I would love to have seen a timeout after that play with Garnett in the huddle saying, okay, like we're gonna take this dude out. I'm not talking about hurt him, but no, that's not happening ever again. The Celtics, oh, well, that's a great play by Trey. No, Trey's trying to embarrass you. He's trying to take your heart out. He's trying to make Sports Center. I hope Grant didn't turn the TV on last night after that. It's just like that's kind of stuff. That's Globetrotter stuff. Like I wrote. Like you probably put, I'm probably predating you guys. You probably put Geese Osby in the middle of the court and just have him talking and then dump confetti water on the refs. You might as well play Sweet Georgia Brown last night. I mean, Nilo Gallinari, all 32 years, it's pulling up from 33, 34 feet.
You would ask Brad about, how he, just the message to the locker room, and he more or less said, I'm paraphrasing here, that, don't confuse the way I'm talking to you guys as the way that I talk to the players. It's different. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We're not in there, obviously, but he's an even keeled guy. We don't see or hear him yell. You got the players talking about, we need to be accountable. It's one thing to say that, it's another thing to actually be held accountable. And I guess I'm certainly not calling for Brad's job. One, but for all the fire Brad people, Brad's not going anywhere. We talked about that.
No,
nor do I even want him to go anywhere. I think he's a great coach. I really do. But I am starting to at least wonder a little bit about, and this is not age, it's not experience, time in the NBA, all that stuff. It's talent level. I'm wondering about Brad's ability to reach guys of a certain talent level. It's that college coach versus NBA coach sort of leap, obviously, that I think we've
Well, that's
seen it.
why, Adam, I think his staff is interesting. Like, I like Jerome Allen. I think he's done a good job. You know, he's kind of the guy who's reached out and kind of bonded with players. And Evan Turner, like, I think you needed like a veteran, former NBA player on that bench, like a guy who they recognize.
You need like a perk on the bench.
Yes, like the Clippers hired Chauncey Billups.
Yeah.
The Heat hired Caron Butler. Like, that, there's a reason why, not because they're great guys and they bring personality but the players know who these guys are, right? Do they know Evan Turner, but Evan's like his seriousness level, he's always been kind of a funny guy. Like, how serious do they take Evan Turner? Like, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying they don't.
Yeah.
Like, I always thought Brad padded his staff with too many, like Danny, yes guys or nice guys or good solid coaches, but where is that form? Like, Doc had Clifford Ray to deal with those guys back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, like Armand Hill, and then he added Ty Lue later on. I think they need like a former player who these guys recognize, who can pull him aside. And I think Jerome does as best as he can to do that. But Jerome's more like a college coach. He played overseas. He had some stints with Minnesota. Jerome did make the league, so it's nothing against Jerome. But I thought, like, even like a former Celtic, and I don't know, like, I know Antoine Walker was talking about he wanted to coach. I'm not talking about bringing back Antoine, but someone who wants to be a coach, because these guys want to get into the game. Like, Chauncey took the Clippers job. Like, he wants to be involved. There's guys around that will leave their TV jobs or leave their analyst jobs for a team to coach because they want to be part of that life again. They want to instruct. But if you're surrounding yourself with, great guys, Jamie Young, Larinaga, Brandon Bate, guys who are just like, who are these? Like, you think Jayson Tatum fully respects the words of guys like a Brandon Bailey? And I'm not ripping Brandon, but just like over a guy who played 12, 13 years in the league. That's the thing. Like, you've got to understand that's the new NBA here. You could fill your staff in the old days with some of these, just guys who've been the forever assistant, the Tex Winners and the Brendan Malones and those guys. But now these young guys respond to guys who they recognize and know. They need big brothers. They need some 38-year-old guy who played in the league who can tell Jayson, you messing up, or Jaylen, like, let's hang out, like a kind of an uncle, older, or a big brother type. That's what and Jerome, I think, has done a good job. And I don't know what Evan's doing because we do not get a chance to go to practice, so you don't see how Evan's doing working out there. But I always thought that they should have. That's Brad's flaw. Also, just like, hey, the Butler guys are great, but man, you need, and there's plenty of guys around the league that would definitely work in Boston. Sam Mitchell would work in Boston. Like, there's plenty of guys, former NBA coaches, that could hold these guys accountable.
I agree.
Last one from me, Gary, and I'll let you go on this, and if Evan has anything else. So just on Kemba Walker, it's something I was, again, just as you watch this team, and in a lot of cases hate watch this team, as I talked about with the beginning of the show, it's how much of the lack of rhythm for Kemba Walker is impacting this team. He's out, he's in with the minutes restriction. He's not going to be in. There's no clear rotation when he's not in. There isn't the de facto starting point guard when he's not in.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of that is the Marcus Smart injury as well, but it's just the reality that they're living in with Smart out these last few weeks, last 14 games. And it just sort of feels like, whereas a guy like that should be such a great complementary piece, and mentally he's of the right mind, he's deferential, he's obviously making more money than you would want for a third star, but guy was an all-star last year before this knee thing became the I don't know, it was already a chronic knee problem, but before it's really obviously become that much bigger an issue over the last year plus at this point, to the point where, Sean Devaney was on the show with us at one point a few weeks back, said, like, this guy's untradeable. You won't find a team that wants to take on Kemba Walker. And who could blame Danny for even trying to get rid of him in the first place and not wanting to have another, albeit salary different Isaiah Thomas situation on his hands? I don't know. It is not that it's Kemba's fault, but is his mere presence and all of the confusion that comes along with it further screwing things up?
Yeah, I do think it's been, I don't say dysfunctional, but just choppy. Right. Like they really could have used him last night, but they made the decision to play him against Dallas. Now they're saying, well, we're only going to play him in the first game of back-to-backs. So that's at least 8 games he's going to miss in the second half because they got 8 back-to-backs. Will he ever play both games of a back-to-back? Okay, you're saving him for the playoffs. And then when he gets it going, like he had 14 points in the fourth quarter against Dallas, you'd like to see him, see if he can continue that. Now we're waiting. Now, who knows? We might see a super energetic Kemba Friday because they got 2 days off. He might be just ready to roll. Okay. And then we'll see Kemba for the next 4 games because they don't have any back-to-backs in the first half. So this is a big stretch for Kemba. 4 games in a row. The Celtics need to win 2-3 of these games to get save a little bit of face and get some respect back. We'll see what he brings. But I think some of these superstars or stars, all-stars that you deal with and you get to know are very confident. They never lose it. And there's others like Kemba who will show that he's lost confidence. And I think Kemba's lost confidence. I think he's frustrated. I think he feels like I should be able to hit any open shot I take, and he's not hitting them. I mean, there were so many times in New Orleans where he could have turned the tide of that game and stopped a run or brought the Celtics back or gave them a 7-point lead when the lead was 4 and New Orleans was charging. He missed an open 3. And then he takes that 3-pointer when they're down 3 after Brandon Ingram hit the go-ahead 3, just quick 3 miss. Like, he was 2 for 17 from 3 until that fourth quarter in Dallas. So what are we dealing with? Are we dealing with that Kemba? Or are we dealing with the fourth quarter Kemba in Dallas? And will he ever, when he's just up and down, I don't think that helps this team. I don't think it helps the team when you don't know whether to depend on him for scoring and for that type of like spark plug. And maybe it's going to take another month. I don't want to put a tab in, well, he's done, he's washed, as the young people say. I don't want to say that yet because it could take another month for his knee and his endurance to get back to where he's like, hey, he's back to because if you look at his first 2 months in Boston were pretty impressive. Before like that, like up to mid-January, from November to mid-January, I mean, he had a 39-point game. I mean, Kemba was all-star Kemba. So it's hard for me to believe like he's just lost all that. I think it's confidence though. And I think that he's got to try to get it back, whether it be just hitting the gym, talking to a sports psychologist, whatever, whatever it takes for him to get that swagger back, that he can be that third wheel. And then the team is different. Then you bring Marcus back and then the team is different. But without a engaged in productive Kemba, I don't know if this team is going to make it past the first round.
Have parting thoughts?
No, I mean, look, the Kemba stuff is just disheartening, but we've vented a lot, I think, and I think that's a good thing. It's just a matter of trying to get this team more focused, and in the pecking order of things that I blame the Celtics struggles for, I don't put Jaylen or Jayson high on that list, and I just think that as this team moves forward, they got to find a way to gather themselves. But I mean, again, I do think it's a talent thing, and I don't think they're talented enough to. I mean, never mind compete with Brooklyn and Philadelphia. Milwaukee is struggling, Indiana's struggling, but you look at the talent, it just makes a little more sense than what Boston's got in their roster right now. So just hope that Kemba gets his act together a little bit, and then if that happens, this team can reach another goal here, because I go back to that Toronto game a couple of weeks ago where they played Toronto at the TD Garden. They played this 5-out style where they had Kemba as an off-ball shooter, and he was hitting shots that day. And I'm like, this is great. This is exactly what you're looking for, right? You have a third guy on the floor with Jayson and Jaylen that could make their lives a little bit easier. The Celtics right now don't have a guy that makes their life easier, except for the other guy. And until they get that guy, they're not going anywhere.
Gary, I'm hoping the next time you come on the show, we'll have more positive things to talk about, but it's good to get all this off our chests, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, you just never know at this point. What a season so far. Boy, I mean, who would have thunk?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Good news is, though, fans will be back in the stands soon enough, so people can go watch this in person. Thanks to Gary.
Happy, joy.
Yeah, thanks to Evan. I'm Adam, and join us again. The next Celtics Beat drops this time next week. We'll talk to you then.